Last year was the biggest year in business that I've ever had. We generated nearly $1.5 million in revenue. It was also one of the most difficult and chaotic years that I've ever experienced. But I believe that what's made me good as an entrepreneur up to this point has been the difficulty, has been the lessons that I've learned when things didn't go the way that I wanted. So today, I'm going to share with you the top lessons from the past year. My goal is that you can learn a little bit more about what it's like to be a seven-figure entrepreneur. You can learn the lessons of what it'll take to build your dream business without the scars. We're going to cover important topics like marketing, margin, and momentum. It's going to be great. Okay, I'm going to start with perhaps the most important lesson you can ever learn in business. The reason is not that this is going to take you to the absolute highest heights. It's that without this, you will never be able to achieve what you want to in business. And it's going to be margin, okay? I'm going to pop this open, but I want to start by saying this. I am very good at math. I got a near perfect score on my SAT in high school. Really, I always had a knack for math. And I thought that would serve me really well in business, and it has. I'm very good in spreadsheets. I'm very good in my role in helping therapists and building out the numbers of a business and financial models and all the rest. But it wasn't really until this year, the year before, that things really clicked as they should when it came to margin, okay? What is margin? This is more in finance than math. It is what you have left over after, right? Left over after marketing expenses, or left over after paying your team to deliver the service or the product that you had just sold. I had the highest expenses. I scaled to the highest levels that I've ever scaled to before last year. And when you have massive payroll and massive amounts of money coming in, you really understand your unit economics to a much higher level, okay? So that was a really big piece of this. But additionally, I worked with more business owners beyond $3 to $5 million per year. I surrounded myself with business owners at high levels. I joined into communities of people who were doing much better than me in business. This has always been something that spurred a lot of growth. But meeting people who are doing $5 million a year, $10 million a year or more, especially at a very high quantity, helped me to put together the pieces. What are they doing that I'm not? What is different about their business than mine? And not to say that, my business or businesses were not properly put together. It was just to recognize that by and large, every single one of these larger businesses had good unit economics, okay? Now, I'll speak to group practices. Especially group practices that I worked with that were doing above $3 million a year, $5 million a year, up to $10 million a year, most of them were able to get $70, $100 in gross profit per session. Now, this is way higher than most of the group practice owners that I talked to. And the reason I think that was the case for so many of these group practices is that's what allowed them to grow. That's what allowed the owners to pay themselves well and run the quantity of marketing and advertising and clinical training and get the admin support and software that they needed to build that infrastructure and that business at scale. Okay, so that was really key for a lot of the online entrepreneurs I met who were doing $10 million a year. They also had really clear unit economics. Oftentimes they made a lot of money for everything that they sold, and it only cost them a little bit to deliver it. So a lot of times they could spend a ton of money on paid advertising, okay? What this really taught me is that you should play an easier game. Given the choice of playing the most difficult game you can, where any unexpected expense is going to wipe you out, or playing an easy game where you always have leftover money and you can afford top quality talent, top quality support, you should always choose to play the easier game. In my opinion, right? This is the lessons that I've learned. What I found as well when working with different types of therapists, right? Working with people who are just getting started and were not making $1,000 a month versus working with group practice owners doing $5 million a year. They're vastly different people at this stage in their career, right? Higher paying clients, higher level clients tend to be better clients. And so I changed my business model and things got better, right? This is why for this year, I'm focusing exclusively on group practice owners, and really group practice owners who already have some clients. They just tend to get the most amazing results they tend to be the ones that I enjoy working with the most. So last thing I'll say on margin is it is just the foundation of your business. And if you are right now stuck and you're not making as much as you want and you're working really hard, 90% of the time, 95% of the time, there is a problem in your margin. Okay? This is not something you have to stick with forever. There are all of these creative ways that you could make a better business, a better mousetrap, right? Sometimes if you're private pay, you can up your rates. If you're on insurance, you can get off the panels that don't pay you. You can add new services and group therapy and different ways where you can generate income. Interns is another example. But you don't have to stay stuck, right? First thing I always look at when I'm working with clients is fixing their model, because I know as well for myself how much this affects quality of life and the scale of your business. Okay, so let's move on to the next piece of this. This is leadership lessons. Built a big team to get to high levels of revenue, and so there's a lot that I learned about leadership, especially when things did not go the way that I wanted. First point that I'll talk through is always be selling. Sell or be sold. In order to grow a business to $1 million a year, it is almost entirely marketing and sales. You must be good at getting new clients consistently, every single day, every single week, every single month, all year in order to get to $1 million a year. But along the way, you add people onto your team and you have to sell them just as much as you have to sell potential clients into your business. What I mean by that is even if you brought them on and you guys were totally aligned on vision at the beginning, you have to constantly be reiterating and bringing them back in alignment to your vision in order for the business to move forward. You cannot have people who all want to make it up as they go, want their own rules within your business. And I think that as I dealt with so many different tasks in the business myself, I let some of my standards slip, or I just didn't define some of the standards in terms of quality of work for people on my team. And I think that slowed us down and also created a lot of friction for me, right? Between what I thought we should do, but wasn't really sure we should do. The big lesson is you need to be clear on what you want, and you need to get people on board with your vision and the way that it needs to go. And if that doesn't happen, then you can have the conversation. You know, it's not a great thing to fire people, but you also have to be willing to let people go. In the space that we were in at the beginning of last year, we had done 7 figures before, going from $1 million to $3 million a year, which is kind of, you know, the target, the track record we were on. It takes new people, it takes new ideas. And so having a willingness to, if people can't match up with the business, to move them on was kind of one of the lessons that I learned. Now, the other piece of this is that growing a business to higher levels is really just about better people. And I mean better people from a business perspective, not as who they are as human beings, but time and again, the people I met who are doing $5 million a year or $10 million a year are more switched on than the people doing $1 million a year. They know their businesses more thoroughly. They might work harder, but maybe they're better leaders. They're better able to do more advanced skills. That's in the entrepreneurs, but they also have those people on their team or the agencies that they pay, right? All that a better business is it's better people. It's upgrading the people that you surround yourself with. And I saw that time and again, that the quality of the people either needs to increase to the standard of where the business is, or you need to bring in new people in order to keep the business growing. Last piece of this is an operational lesson on leadership, but when things grow and scale to higher levels, it's very hard to keep track of everything yourself. It really helps to start to set other people's names to key performance indicators, metrics, and then hold them to account in a project manager. So I learned project management skills like no other last year, just in terms of, okay, cool, we have these goals. What do we think is going to get us there in terms of a plan? Okay, and what are the different tasks that we need to do in order to make that plan happen, make that project happen, to achieve the ultimate goal, right? Doesn't mean that you have to be the one to go create all those tasks in your project manager. Doesn't mean that you have to be amazing at running the project manager yourself, but to have a visual overview of all the things that need to get done and where they are helps you to keep other people on track. Because just as you might get distracted and busy, so do other people. But your core job as a leader is to keep things moving, right? It doesn't matter if bad things are happening, good things are happening. There are key business activities that need to continue to happen. And so having that planned out ahead of time, having that tracked, delegating a lot of that to other people is a skill set that I would say I learned, but also something I found to be very, very foundational to reaching higher levels in business. So all being said, a lot in leadership that I believe is going to make me significantly better in running teams in the future. Okay, we're going to move on to marketing. Like I said, marketing and sales foundational to getting to $1 million a year. Getting from $1 million a year to multiple millions a year is about doing more marketing, right? It is also having a good business model and having better people and all the other things that I'm saying, but foundationally it's about getting more people in, right? And your quality of marketing often has to increase because your margin gets squeezed with all the other costs in the business, right? All the other infrastructure that you're bringing in. So you have to be a better marketer to keep growing once you get to a certain cap. So I'd also say in terms of marketing, if you're stuck currently, a lot of times it is the same thing that you've been doing, but it's doing it better and doing it more that will reach to a new stage. So I learned a lot about marketing operations, and really that was that quality comes from quantity. It's something that coming into this year, I've tried to practice, and I've put out a lot more content, but I've gotten into a better habit on creating content. It's something that I've struggled with for a really long time. But I learned that if you can just hit enough quantity of the thing, you're going to get better at it, right? The marketing operations really comes to looking at other people's marketing, whether it's ads or content, saying what did they do well, trying to replicate it for yourself with your own twist on it, and then analyzing how it did, right? That for me went through advertising creative. It also went through organic marketing, which I wish I would have done more consistently through the first half of last year, and even through the back half, because that plus advertising were some of the key constraints for us as we were moving through the year. So quantity of creative, ads, content, there's obviously a system. And yeah, that was one of the big things for us last year was how do we produce 10 new high quality ads every single week? And how do we make it better than our ads last week, right? And that question spurs, okay, I don't have 4 days to do this, so how do we do this in 1 day or half a day, right? Or a couple hours. And so that's where processes get created and driven, right? And that was one of my primary responsibilities in addition to running the rest of the business. Now, additionally, in marketing, especially in direct response marketing and running advertising, I learned a ton about building and running financial models as the basis of scaling a business. When you know margin, when you know how much it costs you to get a new client and how much you make from that new client, you can create something called a financial model. All that a financial model is a spreadsheet that says, hey, if I spend $10,000 next month on advertising, I can expect this many new clients, okay? And if I get this many new clients, I'm gonna make more than that $10,000. And then the month after, if that goes well, I'm gonna move to $15,000 and $20,000. You can grow businesses incredibly fast if you have a really solid financial model, right? And you're able to plan out your growth ahead of time. So that was something that also was high level, very important on the marketing front last year. So that is marketing. Move on to momentum. And this really goes to, I would almost say, the mindset of entrepreneurship. All of the game of entrepreneurship is in momentum, is in your ability to keep moving forward. There are infinite things that can stop momentum. You can have an audit You could have somebody quit on your team. You can have a bad review online, or a client problem, or some software not working the way that it's supposed to. There's so many things that can slow you down and stop you, but your job as the entrepreneur is to try to keep moving, right? If momentum slows down, it's to try to keep it moving a little bit, right? You might not be at the same pace all year round, but your job is to keep trying to deliver that pace. There's nothing more profitable than having momentum, than bringing new sales in the door, new clients in the door, generating revenue, growing the business, improving things. There's nothing more costly than losing momentum. Infighting between people in the team. Like I said, client challenges, or working on tax and legal stuff that has nothing to do with growing the business. There are many things that you will have to do within the business, but the extent to which you can put those in the right place so they don't stop your main momentum is critical, is so important, okay? As a corollary to that, if you lose momentum, you can gain it back. You can't go from 0 to 100 in one day, in at least in my estimation, but you can go from 0 to 10, and 10 to 20, or 30, and 30 to 50, and 50 to 80, right? And you can build it back over time. It all starts in the habits daily. It starts in blocking out the time to work on the things that you need to. But no matter how difficult each moment can be in business, keeping up momentum, keeping up the culture and the energy in the team is really, really important. And then if you have a great month, if things are going well, you have to keep it going. You have to keep investing in the momentum and the energy of your team and of your business. Okay, last piece of this is simplicity. Like I said, I got much better observation into people at much higher levels of business than me. And it taught me that they're not these, incredible complex businesses, that these entrepreneurs aren't so incredibly special. They have a good business model, they have a good offer and a good product, and they have a lot of simple stuff, right? I saw people with huge sales teams, let's say 10 people, 15 people on their sales team, but each individual sales rep is just like the other one, right? They're doing the same skill set. That's what a really, really big business looks like compared to a much smaller sales team of one person or two people, okay? The actual offers, the actual business models of big businesses are very much the same as small businesses. The difference is that the profitability is so much higher in the big businesses a lot of the time because of the volume of people that they see, right? And that lesson on it is scaling a simple, profitable model was one I saw repeated again and again and again. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't a lot of people who have big businesses that are not incredibly complex, but especially at these relatively small scales, $1 million, $10 million a year, a lot of times I found it was the simplest possible models were what won most of the time. Back to what I said at the beginning, it's about playing an easy game, okay? So I now believe it's about getting the business model right and doing an enormous amount of the simple actions. Focus on the simple things, avoid making things complicated as much as you can. So if I could sum up lessons learned in 2025, I speak to these things in terms of, hey, here's the lesson, but a lot of the stories where things did not go well, things did not go the way I planned. I had some of the highest highs and some of the lowest lows. And I had moments where I was able to push past it and moments where it did slow me down. And so, if I could go back and do anything, it would be to be extremely clear on my vision, my principles, and communicating that and bringing other people within that and keeping up constant momentum. And I also would have tried to change up the margin of things early on. And that might have meant rebalancing team dynamics and utilization of the people on my team, but fixing that piece earlier would have helped us to go even farther. So with that, those are the lessons that I learned in 2025. I hope you found this helpful. I hope there are some principles you can take into your own business career.